But corporate social responsibility, or CSR, has really never been more important for business. And I think it's particularly important when you're manufacturing offshore, when you're making products that carry your brand name, effectively doing it sight unseen. You need to make sure that you've got due diligence and process in place to first and foremost protect the people who are manufacturing those products, but to protect everybody throughout the entire process, including your own business, and ensure that those processes live up to your own values in terms of CSR. CSR, from my perspective, is really broken down to three key components. First and foremost is the people. And when we're looking at offshore manufacturing and developing products and producing products, we're not just talking about the people who are manufacturing them, but we're also talking about everybody throughout the entire process, right through to the consumer who's receiving that product. We need to make sure that all of those people are protected. So whether it's the working conditions for the manufacturers, or whether it's the product safety for the person receiving that, we need to tick all those boxes. Secondly is the environment. We've got to make sure that our actions don't have a negative impact on the environment, and that, again, that's end to end throughout the entire process. And thirdly, we need to ensure that we're protecting the stakeholders and the brands that we're working with. I mean, ultimately, it's their brand that we're putting onto these products, so it's their integrity at stake. So we need to make sure that it's a positive experience for them. I mean, ultimately, if it's a positive experience, potentially leads to more work for the people at the start of the chain, and so everybody wins from that. On the flip side, if it's negative, that doesn't help anybody. So I think it's really, really important that you consider those three things. Firstly, people, end to end, not just at the supply chain end, but also at the recipient end, the environment, and ultimately protecting the brands and the stakeholders that we're working with. So something I'm particularly quite big on, as far as, I guess, my own CSR outlook on life is ensuring that the people at the manufacturing end of the process are protected. And a key way of doing that is through factory audits. And what a factory audit does is it basically gives you eyes and ears on the ground in another country to ensure that the people in those facilities are being looked after and are working in good conditions. It's easy to forget how lucky we are here in New Zealand. You know, we've got labour laws and just our natural way of doing business to protect us and protect employees from substandard kind of conditions. But that's not the case in other countries. So the thing with the factory audit is they'll go in there and they'll make sure that firstly those factories or those facilities are meeting the bare minimum requirements or legal requirements for those countries, but then just making sure that the bare minimums are available, whether it's toilets and running water or first aid kits, but just making sure that what we take for granted is available, and just making sure that those people are being looked after and their health and safety is not put at risk to manufacture what effectively we want to manufacture. The thing is, in New Zealand there's pretty lax rules on what you can and can't do in terms of what you can import into the country, and so I think self-regulation is key, because it means that you're going above and beyond that legislation to protect yourself and also protect your stakeholders throughout the entire process. You know, for example, my own policy and my own business's policy on regulation or self-regulation is basically if it goes on the skin, goes in the mouth, if it's a product for kids, or it gets plugged into the wall, then we test it. Now, legislation doesn't make us do that, you know, and there's a bunch of products, we could walk down the street now and buy a bunch of products that haven't gone through any of those processes. But the thing is, when you're dealing with someone else's brand, you've got to protect them at every corner. And then by protecting them, you're protecting yourself. So, and we've ultimately got to protect the consumer, because nobody wants a headline out of all of this. That's not the goal. You know, we want positive news, not negative. So I think that's really important to self-regulate. For example, I had a customer come to me recently. We've been working on a project which the product is actually for kids, and it also plugs into the wall to recharge. And basically we could legally bring that product in without doing any testing. The factory that we've worked with before, and we do trust them. They can provide us the certification that we need to be able to bring that product in to meet local law. However, we still push for more testing, because it only takes one small variable within the manufacturing process. Maybe that particular part's run out, the wholesaler, and they use a different part on our order. But there could be that one change that could lead to have a negative impact on that product, and that could put somebody in danger. So by self-regulating and going above and beyond and testing even when we don't actually have to test, we're protecting the stakeholders and the brands that we're working with. We're protecting our own business, but ultimately we're protecting the consumer. Ultimately, CSR is about being a good corporate citizen or a good responsible business. So I think when it comes to product manufacturing, so long as you're considering the people end to end, so making sure that you're doing factory audits, making sure that the people at the manufacturing side of things are being looked after, right through to the people who are receiving those products, making sure those products are tested above and beyond local legislation to ensure that those people are also protected, making sure you're not negatively impacting the environment, and I guess those two things lead to number 3 of protecting the stakeholders and the brands that you're working with and producing products for. Once you've covered those 3 things, then everything else kind of falls into place.